At this time, you are either in the process of registering with SAM or you have just completed your System for Award Management registration. And I'm sure that you took this step because nobody on the planet spends money like Uncle Sam. Last year's spending topped $4.7 trillion. Federal contracting line items totaled $450 billion for goods and services of every conceivable stripe. If it's available in the commercial market, someone in the federal sector was purchasing it also. Unfortunately, after decades of bureaucratic tinkering, the process for actually doing business with the government is slightly less complex than brain surgery. Now, 39% of federal contracting dollars are set aside specifically for small businesses just like yours. That means that more than $175 billion at a minimum was available for small businesses last year. Women-owned, veteran, and minority-owned businesses received the more favorable consideration. However, as much as the government wants to do business with you, just being registered with SAM is not enough. That's actually just the A of the alphabet in the government contracting arena. And attracting and keeping government clients can be a nightmare scenario for business owners unfamiliar with the terrain. Consider these facts. There are approximately 30 million small businesses registered in this country. Around 1 million are registered in SAM. And only about 1/3 of those have ever been awarded a contract from the government. So the opportunities are tremendous and the doors are wide open for those that want to participate. Select GCR helps small businesses succeed in the government sector where so many others have failed. And in the last few years, our clients have received more than $450 million in government contracts, grants, loans, and other financial assistance. We have learned some simple, painless, and predictable ways of tapping into the government money flow. And we'll teach you how it's done for free. Yes, free. You will learn how to increase revenue and diversify your business faster than you ever thought possible by working with the United States government. Now, before we start, there's one thing that I want to make perfectly clear. Select GCR is not the government. We are a private company just like you, and the things that we're going to show you can be accomplished on your own. The government has 2,000 websites and tens of thousands of pages to help you get set up and ready to do business with more than 430 departments, agencies, and sub-agencies that make up the federal government. Plus, there are thousands of state, county, and local purchasing authorities to pursue as well. Our staff has invested 100 years combined in figuring this stuff out. While you could tackle this on your own, we've already made the mistakes that you undoubtedly will. We've already invested our money in learning the lessons that only time and experience can teach. Let me share a few of them with you now. So grab a pen or a keyboard and follow along because we've got a lot to unpack. It all starts with your decision to take on additional revenue in the form of government awards. To get paid, your company must be registered with System for Award Management, SAM. When registering with SAM, it is a multi-step process that requires you to have a DUNS number and an account at login.gov. If you've already completed SAM, you'll now see how tedious a process this becomes from this point forward. A lot of companies that start the process never finish it. And I'm sorry to say, completing SAM is one of the easiest things that you'll have to do to conduct business with the government. There are plenty of pitfalls while registering with SAM. First off, all of your data must line up exactly between DUNS, the IRS, and the Defense Logistic Agency, DLA. A lot of proprietorships trip over having the business registered with their DBA first and their name second with one agency, and then the individual's name first at another. This mismatch causes delays and still more paperwork. It's also important to create the right type of account to start with, or you'll need the IT department to create you a new email address because yours is now forever locked to the wrong account. You have to deal with time-sensitive passwords and links that expire, PIN codes, and certified letters. There are 20 to 30 forms to work through, and going back to correct or append the data forces you to go all the way through all of those pages each time. And then when you do submit, first it goes to IRS for validation. You pass that, now you're off to the DLA for a couple weeks to see if they have any issues. They'll pour through your state registrations and verify address information right down to the suite number. And again, all things must match up one for one. Finally, you receive your CAGE code, which stands for Commercial and Government Entity. And if only you had to register with SAM because a client required you to do it in order to get paid, your journey is done. However, your CAGE code now grants you access to DSBS. This is the dynamic small business search database maintained by SBA. That's the Small Business Administration. Government contracts valued under $25,000 are sourced here. You'll use this database to be seen by government buyers interested in your wares and by prime contractors looking for teaming partners. So let's explore how to use DSBS properly. Whether you're actively bidding or waiting for buyers to find you, it is very important to have your keywords, capabilities narrative, and NAICS codes right and tight in your DSBS profile. To determine the proper NAICS codes, you will go to the census.gov website. NAICS stands for North American Industry Classification System. Simply type in a keyword that explains what your business does, and you will then be provided the 6-digit code to enter into your profile. Find one or more that fit your business. These are one of the first codes that a government procurement officer will filter in DSBS. Next, you must determine what your 4-digit product and service codes are in the product and service manual. You can go directly to acquisition.gov or link to this page through the SBA or GSA website. PSC codes provide the government more granularity in how the money is being spent. You will find your PSC codes in the 330-page product and service code manual maintained by the Small Business Administration. Now, if your NAICS or PSCs aren't right, or your keywords don't line up properly, you'll be completely overlooked. When you bid on a contract, all of these will be checked prior to making an award decision. Any confusion, omission, or errors will put you completely out of the game. Keep in mind, if you need to make any corrections to your profile other than the point of contact information, you'll need to go all the way back to the beginning in SAM and work your way through all of those pages. Search results in DSBS also display your capabilities narrative. You want this brief paragraph to create a favorable first impression on the contracting officer that sees it. It should clearly describe your business and state why you're the best choice. If it is left blank, is poorly written, or has typing errors, then your turn in the barrel has just ended. Now at this point though, you've covered all of the basic requirements for doing business with the government. Your SAM and DSBS registrations are accurate and complete, and your profile clearly and professionally depicts your business. If you've taken the proper steps or checked the correct boxes while registering, buyers also know that you are self-certified for set-asides and if you accept credit cards for payment. When buyers need to fill a request under $25,000, they will find or try to find you here on DSBS. Now I say try because just like when you search for anything in Google, this buyer will get pages and pages of results. The SBA has a rotation scheme that will get you onto their screen eventually where you'll be seen or have a shot to be seen, but who wants to sit, wait, and hope to be chosen for upcoming contracts? And that's why it is key to know all of your options and understand how to market to the federal government. Now the DSBS represents only one of the ways to tie into small awards. There are others, but for amounts over $25,000, you'll need to get registered On federal business opportunities, the website is fbo.gov. On any given day, you'll find 30,000+ federal opportunities listed there. And behind those opportunities is a small army of federal contracting officers. And it's their job to source those awards. Now, you might think that spending $450 billion a year would be a pretty fun gig, right? But then your thinking would be wrong. If you think the rules and processes that we have to follow are overly abundant and complex, then you should pity the person making the award. Their job is codified in law and detailed in the Federal Acquisition Regulations, or FAR. FAR consists of 52 chapters of rules that must be followed. Chapter 1 alone is more than 2,000 pages. So let's take one simple contract as an example. The rules for posting an opportunity are covered in FAR Chapter 5. The Crib Notes version of this chapter is 64 pages alone. Where and for how long must the opportunity be published? Well, does the contract request fall under any acts of law such as the Recovery Act, the Defense Authorization Act, the Davis-Bacon Act, the Service Contract Act, or the Acquisition Reform Act? What type of contract is required? A fixed price or a cost reimbursement contract, or a combination of both? Is it an incentive, T&M, or a labor hour contract? Perhaps it's an IDIQ or a letter contract. Could it be handled as a BPA? Well, they all have different rules attached. Are you starting to get the picture? So, our intrepid contracting officer posts the opportunity on the open market for the prescribed number of days, usually much longer than is required because it's not the only contract being dealt with. You will use the various search filters on the available sites and locate those contracts that you want to bid on. Then when the bid comes in, sometimes hundreds of them, each one needs to be reviewed and the businesses need to be painstakingly researched by the contracting officer. At all times, they are still trying to balance their small business set-aside requirements against things like price, terms, and past performances and the like. When the search is narrowed to 10 potential vendors, it then gets passed over to another contracting officer, one not previously involved. And that officer will select 3 to pass back for final award decision. Now, don't be discouraged if you don't have success on the first few rounds of bids that you submit. Use this as a valuable learning experience. Here's a little known tool that you definitely want to take advantage of. For every opportunity lost, you have a chance to learn why you were not selected. You do this by submitting a formal post-award debriefing request letter to the officer. You want to send in this request right after you submit your bid. With this request, you will determine why the proposal was not selected for a contract award, and to let the officer know that you are requesting this information to improve future solicitations by gathering information about your proposal performance. Now, keep in mind that there could be 100 losing bidders, and you don't know how many of them will be doing the same thing. So get yours in early while it's still fresh and gain this insight as quickly as possible to improve your chances the next time. Now, the methods for determining which opportunities make it to the open market and the process of deciding who receives the award vary greatly. The system has grown increasingly complex over the years and seems to change constantly. I think they call that bureaucratic job security. Now, numbers vary. Perhaps 35% of all potential contracts never make it onto the FBO website. The contracting officer has a certain amount of discretion under the rules, and they will make their life easier whenever possible and avoid the open market as much as allowed by law. Now, something very important to know is that a large percentage of federal contract spending is for renewing expired contracts. These are classified as recompete. So prior to expiration, contracting officers may invite vendors that they've worked with in the past to bid on these recompete contracts. This is done through direct requests or a request for information, an RFI. If you're smart, you'll get out in front of these opportunities by knowing where to search for these expiring contracts months prior to their expiration. Now, after finding a suitable contract, you will submit a FOIA doc to the Freedom of Information and Privacy Officer, requesting access to the specs for the said contract, and by law, they must reply to your request. You can also do this the old-fashioned way and pick up the phone and call the contracting officer, as they will answer questions that you have prior to the contract being posted. Now, for your company to be in the running for these fast-tracked opportunities, the contracting officer must first know who you are. That's where your formal capability statement comes in. You must get this in front of your potential buyers. Your CAPE statement is your government resume. It tells the procurement and contracting officers exactly who you are, what you do, and why they should do business with you. And quite frankly, we've seen a number of pretty nasty CAPE statements throughout the years. So this needs to be a one-page document that is concise, professionally constructed, and differentiates you from your competitors. If the contracting officer can't get the information they need at a glance, they'll just thumb right past you. Our contract writers and graphic designers often argue whether an effective CAPE is a matter of art or science. And believe me, friends, it's both, so you want to get it right. Now, the sad fact is that most SAM registrants plow through tens of thousands of dollars, some even more than $100,000 according to the SBA, trying to do business with the government and largely failing. They developed their proof of concept in the private sector and had hopes of scaling their business in the federal marketplace. They lacked specific knowledge and couldn't justify the cost and work hours for their return. They learned the hard way that just being registered in SAM does not bring them contracts. But how in the world are so many other companies, including your competitors, just knocking it out of the park and getting their piece of that $450 billion? To answer that question, let me first ask this. What if, while working in the private sector, you had access to every person interested in buying your product or service? You would know their name, telephone number, and email address. You would know from whom they bought and how often. Would you like to know how much they paid and when they plan on buying again? Or perhaps that you could most likely get them on the phone between 11 a.m. and 2:30 p.m. Tuesday through Friday. Would that type of information be helpful? Ever wonder what your competitors were up to? Who they're doing business with? What they really charge? Maybe it would be helpful to have a massive library of technical drawings to peek at every once in a while. Can you imagine the damage that you can do with that level of market intelligence at your fingertips? Well, folks, that's exactly how you're going to start working with the federal government, because all of that information is available if you know where to look. Now, the sad thing is that most will have to go through those 2,000 government websites and try to find this information for those 430 departments, agencies, and sub-agencies that make up the federal government. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned we've already made the mistakes that you undoubtedly will, and that we've already invested our money in learning the lessons that only time and experience can teach. Well, over this time, we've created an aggregate software program called Select GCR Pro that connects you to all city, county, state, and federal websites and databases. By filling out a simple search form or setting up a profile, all that information becomes one click away and is provided in this one unique platform. So this tool is where you will find all of the data that I've just described. So keep in mind in the future that there are tools and help, again, if you know where to look. Now let's quickly talk about set-asides, since it is one of the most important factors of working with the government if you qualify. You need to acquaint yourself with a wide array of special certifications available to small businesses. These include women, veteran, and service-disabled owned companies. There are also several socioeconomic certifications with names like 8A Minority-Owned Business, Minority Business Enterprise, Women Business Enterprise, and there's much more. Each gets special consideration from contracting officers, and some even have exclusive opportunities for award. We know that 23% of government spending must be set aside and used for all small businesses. For women, vets, minorities, and hub zone certifications, there's an extra 16% to spread around. And by law, government contracting officers are mandated to meet their annual spending mix, which totaled over $175 billion last year for these audiences. The government needs more registered small and certified businesses to award these contracts to, because right now, less than 1%, again, less than 1% of small, women, veteran, hub zone, and minority-owned businesses in this country are registered to do business with the government. So the doors are wide open for those audiences to take advantage of these tremendous opportunities. Hub zones are seriously overlooked set-asides. These are geographic areas designated as historically underutilized business zones. Far too many times, contracting officers must award billions in set-aside contracts to companies outside those zones because they couldn't locate a qualified business within that zone. Check the hub zone map carefully and see if you meet the requirements. I'm betting a large percentage watching this video now would be quite surprised to learn that they're operating within a hub zone and how easy it would be to qualify for these set-asides. Now, any company that receives a government award is then called a prime contractor. Because contracting officers struggle to hit their set-aside quotas every year, large prime contractors are often required to share that same burden. For awards of a certain value or higher, starting at $700,000, the prime is required to subcontract a minimum of 29% to small businesses. If those subcontractors also happen to be women, veteran, minority, or hub zone, then the prime earns brownie points with the contracting officer. That makes everyone's job a lot easier and in return creates more opportunities for certified businesses. This is why it is so very important to determine the top prime contractors within your industry and register with them as a sub to establish a relationship. It's a great way to get contracts, earn high value performance history, and power your growth curve. Now, the thing that most of you probably already know or have heard something about is a GSA schedule. It's what every government contractor aspires to achieve. It is the master's degree for government contracting. Schedule holders are first in line for virtually every contract opportunity over $25,000. And sometimes they don't even have to compete for the contract, which is a sole source contract. It's all perfectly legal and has the government's blessing. The GSA schedule is a 5-year contract between you and the General Services Administration. The process of getting your company on a GSA schedule is neither quick nor easy. The application consists of several hundred pages of forms, exhibits, and attachments. The government vets you in every way imaginable and pre-negotiates your terms and pricing. But you go through that once, you're good for 5 years. And the contract can be renewed 3 more times, totaling 20 years. Now, when handed a contract to fulfill, the very first place the contracting officer searches is their file of capability statements. They're looking for a couple suitable primes to invite to the party. Failing that, it's on to the GSA Advantage website, which is the government's Amazon for government purchasing. Only GSA schedule holders are listed on this site. And if a suitable schedule holder is not found there, only then is it pushed to the open market for the world to see on fbo.gov also known as Fed Biz Ops. Now, unfortunately, our cadre of overworked contracting officers were only able to source about 10% of last year's contract spending, or roughly $45 billion, to schedule holders. The government wants and needs more companies to get on schedule because it shortens the buying cycle by at least 50% over the open market and requires far fewer work hours. Now, the difference for a contractor is obvious. And instead of you competing against hundreds of bidders and having a minimal chance of getting a contract, when having a GSA, you only compete against a few, increasing your chances from less than 1% to a 33 to 50% chance to attain a contract. Clients often tell us that a contracting officer that they worked with on Fed Biz Ops has urged them to get on a GSA schedule. And some have even made written requests that their GSA application be given priority service. That, my friends, is the power of knowing how to make a contracting officer's life a little bit easier. Now, not every industry or every business activity is eligible for a GSA schedule, but if yours is, then it's like getting one of Willy Wonka's golden tickets. Now, applying for a GSA schedule can take several months and often longer, contingent upon contract experience and how quickly you complete the forms and assemble the needed exhibits. Accuracy and thoroughness are vitally important. Mess up on the application process and you could face a mandatory waiting period before you could even apply again. There are more than 40 different schedules you could apply under. The greatest dollar volume flows through Schedule 70, which covers IT equipment, software, and services. There are nearly 5,000 businesses on this schedule, yet still average more than 2.8 million annually. The second largest scale for purchases is professional services, with an average of nearly 1.8 million per schedule holder. Averages for other schedules range from 300,000 to more than 9 million annually per vendor. And remember, we're only talking about 10% of the federal contracting dollars. Now, our government has the greatest buying power on the planet. There exists a spider web of federal contracting opportunities of every size and shape. Also, being that it is the government, its purchasing methods are equally vast and complex. So keep in mind, there is literally something there for everyone. And don't worry, if you sell it, they're buying it. There are micro purchases programs, split pay plans, and blanket purchase orders. For companies interested in credit card orders under $10,000, there's a $20 billion slice of the pie that is never advertised on FBO, the so-called hidden market. For veterans, check out the VA's Rule of Two for the VIP database. And those are just a few of the many ways to approach and overcome the federal market, not to mention all of the state and local opportunities. To succeed in government contracting, you need as much market intelligence as you can gather and a sound plan of attack that matches your growth objective. Here is where the caution comes in. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Getting government awards may take a little time and effort, but it can gain momentum quickly. Don't let these opportunities outpace your ability to deliver. Repairing a relationship with a contracting officer after having been burnt is not a task that you want to undertake. You want your CAPE statement to stay on top of their file. They'll understand an occasional no to new work, but they'll never forget a yes they came to regret. So learn your angles and make yourself a go-to resource that government buyers can depend on. Remember, they serve the agencies that tasked them to fill a needed contracting obligation. Be the firm that they can return to time and time again without getting blowback. It's just like in the private sector, only with better vision and proven strategies. Now, you'll find some helpful resources below. The most valuable one is the button to schedule a 30-minute strategy session with one of our government procurement advisors. Your GPA will help you understand the options that are available for your business, how you can proceed in taking advantage of those options, and have a full understanding of the services and help that Select GCR can provide. At the end of that conversation, you will know a lot more than you do now, and then you will be able to make an informed decision if government contracting is for you, if you will attempt to move forward on your own, or if you would like help to expedite this process. So the ball is in your court. We would love to speak with you about the opportunities that await, and even provide you access to the Select GCR Pro program that I briefly mentioned. I'll be sending more videos like this one in the near future. If you'd rather not get them, simply click the unsubscribe link in the email that brought you here. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video and learning about Select GCR, Government Contracting Simplified.